Welcome to the Unstoppable Product Pioneer Podcast, where we bring product and UX managers, designers, business executives, and strategists together to unlock the power of strategic alignment. I'm Tamar Stolz, and I am on a mission to empower you to drive meaningful, measurable, and impactful outcomes by aligning business and product strategies. In each episode, I sit down with industry experts who share their experiences, failures, and wins, giving you the insights and tools you need to ensure your alignment drives real business results. It's time to own your expertise, step into your power, and become unstoppable. Amazing. Okay, welcome back to the Unstoppable Product Pioneer Podcast. I am so excited. Today, we are joined by Debbie Levitt, who is the CXO of Delta CX. Debbie is a very experienced CX and UX strategist and has years of experience and tremendous valuable insights that she is going to bring to the table today. She has years of leading different research and design teams and really shaping product vision with different initiatives that she has driven and successfully led, and just influenced strategies with the people that she's worked with. So I'm super excited to welcome Debbie to our show. Thank you, Debbie.
Hey, thank you so much. And congratulations on the new podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I think we're going to start off by just telling us a little bit about who you are, what you do, how you got here.
Yeah, sure. Everybody needs to fall asleep eventually. No, my story is really one of, let's just say, many years in CX and UX strategy, but also doing the work. So I've worked in different places at all different levels, from interim vice president of a 1 billion euro German company, all the way down to working with, and that, not that it's down, but all the way to working with startups and small businesses, mostly in CX and UX related roles. So things about product and service strategy, research, interaction design, prototyping, testing, innovation, things like that. People can find me at Delta CX. We've got deltacx.com, and that will lead you to all the places you might want to go from there. So I would say that's my medium version.
Super. That's awesome. That's really great. So I'm super excited that you're with us, because I think our listeners and our viewers have a lot to gain, and just, practical insights and tools to take away and enhance the work that they're doing. So I'm very excited to get into this. Okay. So in terms of our topic today, do you want to introduce the topic, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in on it. There's a lot of, especially if people have bumped into me on LinkedIn or YouTube or Medium or some of the places where I tend to express myself. There's a lot of things you've heard me talk about over the years, but I think that there's one thing that they all have in common, and that is quality. I think that we're not talking about quality enough. I think that we dance around quality. We say, oh, we want product market fit. We want happy customers. We want more revenue. We want this and that funnel, insert funnel conversation here, conversions. Well, really, all roads, in my opinion, lead back to quality. If we're not delivering quality to the people who have to use the thing, congratulations on your conversions, or congratulations on your failure, or congratulations on your bad A/B test, or whatever you did. But I think we need to talk more about, what are our standards for quality? When is it okay to release something that isn't good enough, and we know it? And when should we release that? When shouldn't we release that? When is a deadline more important? So these are some of the things that are on my mind, and I think they'll probably ring true for a lot of people in product and UX.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Okay, great. So do we want to just dive in and just talk about different, things that you've heard that have helped shape this, idea, or, opinion, topic? Why is this something that you feel so passionate about?
Yeah, well, to me, I'm passionate about it because it's reality. It's very hard for someone to say quality doesn't matter. And as soon as we're saying quality doesn't matter, I think we need to have a larger set of conversations. Why doesn't quality matter? Why is it okay to release garbage and pretend we're going to fix it later. I think that it's important for us to talk more about quality and what our standards are. So I'm passionate about it because you kind of can't get away from it. And we know this because we see our outcomes, we see our metrics, we see what people tweet about us, we see why they call customer support to complain. Sales knows why they're canceling or not signing on, whatever it may be. We kind of know we suck, which is why I should take it off the pile here, which is why my previous book was Customers Know You Suck, which was about delivering better experiences to users and how, even though that does cost us a little bit more upfront in time and money, it should more than pay off in the short and long term in the achievements and goals and revenue and all the things we're trying to accomplish. So I really want to challenge any product or UX person out there, especially if you're feeling like a bit of an order taker at your company where you don't get to make a lot of decisions, stuff is just handed to you. I want you to raise questions and conversations around what are our standards for quality. And you can even go back to your company values. Hey, our company values are honesty, integrity, empathy. We put the customer first. Are we doing that? Are we living that? Are we delivering that promise? So I think conversations about quality can take a lot of forms, but I just don't think we're having those conversations enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to invite all of our watchers and listeners to grab a pen. That's what I'm doing. And just jot things down, because I think there's sometimes, we hear something and it just clicks and it resonates, and it's important to jot it down. So I have my pen because that's something that definitely resonates with me. And I think it's very hard. And I would challenge, Debbie, if I had to play the other side, right?
Please.
So of course, quality is important. What do you mean? Of course we want our users to be happy, right? But we got to get this product. We got to get it out. Like, we have a timeline. We got to get it out. And really, like, our numbers are looking pretty good. Like, of course, we always want to impact the bottom line, but things are looking pretty good. So, I don't think people are going to not sign with us again in 2025 if we release this now, and we'll revisit it.
Yeah, and the great thing is that you're totally right. People do say things like that, and we have to be ready for those conversations. And usually my question is, well, what do the metrics look like? Because obviously, if we release, let's pretend we release stuff we know is garbage. Let's say we know it sucks, and we're releasing it anyway because we deadline. And let's say that it doesn't seem to impact our numbers. It doesn't impact our retention. Clients stay with us. It doesn't impact our adoption or attraction. People are signing up. Let's pretend it doesn't impact any of these things. Then, okay, it's hard for me to say, quality is important. We need to spend more time doing better. But very often the people who are saying to me that it's not that important, let's meet this deadline, hey, this was our timeline, usually they've been sweeping under the rug all kinds of carnage and disaster. Usually they've been ignoring failed A/B tests, bad product launches, low utilization of new features, we all know what the list, I can go down the list, but this is the list. And a lot of these relate to what we call, or what Lean Six Sigma calls, the costs of poor quality. Engineering is going to have to put in the backlog that we're going to have to fix that later. That costs us something. That wasn't free. So I think if we can find the incentives, the impetus, the reason to be better, to do better. Maybe we look at satisfaction scores. Are customers happy with us? What, they're giving us 6s? That doesn't sound very good. How could we be better? But you're totally right. If you have a company or a client who genuinely doesn't care about being better and is complacent with wherever things are now, it is a very difficult conversation to have, because they'll tell you they care about quality, but in reality, they're complacent. They're happy with maybe they're happy with mediocrity. Maybe they're happy with poor quality. And in that case, it's very hard to raise that conversation, because the reality is no one cares.
Right. And how can we empower, let's say, a UX or a product designer who is on a team who is dealing with something like this, where they're working on projects that they don't feel so good about, that they know ultimately their users are not going to be so happy with. But maybe they're afraid for their job. Maybe they're afraid to speak up because they're afraid of being judged, or they're afraid of, shaking things up in a very unstable economy right now without getting down the politics road. It's a scary time, and people are afraid for their jobs, really. So how can we, walk this fine line and balance voicing our opinions or concerns, but at the same time, not shaking things up too much that it affects us or puts, our work or our job at stake.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because especially in this time when so many people are out of work, I'm looking for a job, and some people have been out of work for a very long time, and people are afraid of being in the next round of layoffs. They don't want to make waves. They're very afraid of being the one to speak up because they think that the squeaky wheel gets taken off the car and thrown away. And so, first of all, as much as I don't want people to be afraid, I think that is a valid fear at some companies. So I don't want to tell people, oh, you're just paranoid, that'll never happen. Unfortunately, that could happen. In fact, there was a survey, I think, last year where something like 43% of UX designers who had been laid off felt that part or all of the reason was because they had spoken up. So now, can we prove that that's true? Well, that's their reality. They believe that's why it happened. We don't know for sure, but it's enough that people might be concerned, and I get it. So at that point, you obviously have to weigh how much can I say and how much can't I say? Because I think in this tough time, it is important to put your own oxygen mask on. And if it's more important for you to do a little tap dancing and keep your job, I'm not going to tell you not to. That's in the newer book, Life After Tech. It's okay to save yourself. And so, but for those of you who feel like you have a bit of an open door, or you have some allies at the company, or you have some people who really do care about the outcomes and things like that, and may feel a little bit more stable there, then I think some of the conversations to have are about quality. Some of them are about risk. And I think that conversations about risk are important because they're supposed to be part of good product management, good project management, even aspects of agile. So we're supposed to be looking at risk, documenting it, avoiding risk, minimizing risk, a lot of lean, not the way we think of lean now, thanks to the lean startup, but original lean was about minimizing waste and risk. So you have all of these methods that we're surrounded by every day that are telling us, don't mess it up, don't make a bad decision, do the right thing, and then we kind of just rush through it. So I think that the UX peeps, and maybe even some of the product peeps who feel like they have a little comfort zone there, have those conversations about quality and about risk. And especially, almost everyone I talk to about this privately, I'll say to them, do you know about a disaster project at your company? And they all go, oh yeah, oh gosh, oh my gosh. And then I hear the stories. Oh, the time we spent 500,000. I heard the one about the time we spent 8 million on the thing that sometimes it never gets launched. Sometimes it gets launched and fails immediately. Sometimes they have to roll it back, which is always the worst. And so, can we talk about, hey, it seems cool to be fast. I get it. We shouldn't be slow, but we have to find the balance. There's a graphic I sometimes roll out, but I'm not sure I'm ready to roll it out. Let me see. But I talk about how efficiency is not just about speed. Efficiency is about balancing it with other aspects. Oh, where's my efficiency triangle? Boo, it's not coming up. But anyway, I let me see if I can find it. It's also in my book. Oh, where is it? I'm not ready. Edit this part. All right, maybe you can't edit this part and everyone has to suffer through me. No one will be admitted while Deb looks for her efficiency triangle. Okay, here it is. So basically, the way that I explain it is a lot of people think efficiency means just going faster, going faster. But to me, it's got other components to it. Yes, we can go faster. That's our velocity and speed. But are we still paying attention to what customers really need? Do we understand their problems? Are we solving their problems? And then what about making sure we're cutting risk and cutting waste? Because if we're going faster, but we're being more wasteful, or we're incurring more risk, or we're having more disaster projects, congratulations on your deadline. And that's why sometimes we have to talk to the people at our company about, hey, remember that disaster project? Or remember the last time we pushed for an unreasonable deadline? And so that's why some of this is about having allies. When the UX person truly feels alone, it's so hard to have these conversations and feel like you won't get fired tomorrow. I get it. Nobody wants to be the squeaky wheel. It's not always safe. But if you do have allies, if someone in marketing cares, if someone in sales cares, there's usually someone who cares because they're held accountable for what comes later down the road or later in the funnel. Sales cares if we have a crappy product because then they have problems selling it. So the question I always ask is, can you find allies who will stand with you and go, yeah, what if we delayed this release 2 weeks to make it 2 weeks better?
Yep. Right. It's one of the things I've found in my experience to be a challenge and something that I've had to work on and continue to always have to work on is to know who I'm talking to and how to properly talk to them in language that they understand and feel understood and validated. And I think that, for those who are listening, who are an individual contributor within a product team or a UX team, coming to, let's say, an executive, someone who sits on the leadership team and talking about design thinking methodologies, it's probably not the way to go. So,
and I'm against design thinking, so it's double not the way to go from my perspective.
So, in your experience, Debbie, what could you say, to people who are listening who feel, okay, if I could go talk to someone on leadership, I would go. I have no problem. I don't feel, I'm not intimidated. I'm not afraid. Anyone that wants to listen to me, I'll be there. Right. What would you caution to those people who are going to go as a UX designer or as a product designer, or as a product manager and talk their language? How can we frame that conversation to be meaningful for the person that they're speaking to?
Yeah, meaningful, actionable, helpful, as we like to say. So I think the key here is going to be because ultimately the business's language is money. And it's all the things that make money and all the things that save money. And I find that a lot of the things that make or save money are supposed to be, a point over here, reflected in our strategies, priorities, and decisions. That's what I always come back to. How can we make better strategies, priorities, and decisions? And ultimately, I think that's probably what the business tends to care about, because that's supposedly what's going to make us money. Because once we have something strategic in place, now we have initiatives or projects or new features or services we're going to offer, or old ones we're going to fix because they suck. And so the question, if I got to talk to the executives, I would probably ask them, if I felt like they could be honest with me, what are the things you worry about most related to this company? What are the things that concern you? Where do you think we're broken? Now, I get to have those conversations when I'm brought into a company, not as a UX designer, but as a change agent or a leader or an interim leader. It's very hard for someone at that individual contributor level to go to a higher level leader and make it sound like, I'm a change agent who's going to solve your problem. So I just also want to remind everybody, this may or may not work for you. Even if you have it in your personality, like the two of us do, it may or may not work at your level. The CEO or a C-level or a high-level leader might not be comfortable talking about their struggles and challenges to the senior UX designer or whatever it may be. And I'm not downplaying your importance, senior UX designer. I'm just saying those people might not open up to us. And so it might be something for your manager or your manager's manager to go talk to them about and find out, what do they worry about? Where do they think we're broken? Where do they think the holes are, the gaps are, the leaks? Where are we bleeding money? Where are we bleeding customers? And so if someone can find that out, That to me is always the best way to go, because rather than hearing, hey, make a feature where everyone gets a purple pen, I would rather hear, you know what, the executives are worried about our conversion rate because we even bumped up SEO and we're getting more people in the funnel, but they're still not converting. And I go, aha, this is probably a UX adventure, with our product and engineering partners, but this is an experience problem. And so I would rather hear about these problems and pain points that these higher level people have than if I could hold court with them. I wouldn't start talking about myself or my job. I wouldn't say, do you know what UX is? Do you know that UX isn't UI? Do you know what design thinking is? Do you know that Debbie is against it? I would usually, when I get executives, and sometimes I do, especially when I come in as a change agent, I ask, what does our company do really well? And then I hear good stories. But you know what? They start telling me bad stories even when I ask them, what do we do really well? Because they're burning to say it to someone they can trust. And usually that's me, because I'm from the outside. I'm on a 6-month contract, and then I'm gone. So I said, what do we do really well here? What are we getting right? And then that naturally segues into, what don't we do so well? Where are we kind of broken? Where could we be better? And it's always we. It's not you. It's not that guy. It's we. These are the questions I ask. So again, product designers, you might not be able to have these conversations unless you're at a smaller company or startup where it's very flat and it's very open, and that's the culture. If the culture is a little bit more narcissistic or founder mode, or there's too many layers between you and that person, see if you can find someone in that middle who can have that conversation and bring that information back to you. Sometimes product managers tell me, that's my job. And I go, well, then do it, and come back to me and tell me what keeps these people up at night so that we can dream up strategies and priorities and go back to that executive and go, our team got together and thought about your problem, and these are our epics. These are the problems we're going to solve for the users in the next X quarters, and these are the problems we're going to solve for you in the next X quarters. Imagine if we did that instead of just being the feature factory.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I think, I mean, that resonates with me tremendously. And I think it's a real balance, but I think that when we can talk to people in language and in terms that they understand and they feel heard and validated, I think it, ultimately, usually usually we're all saying the same thing. We're just talking in language that we know, right? Like, as a UX designer or as a product designer or even as a product or UX manager, I want to drive the company to success, and how I do it is how I know how to do it, right? Same thing for an executive. Hopefully, we're all trying to successfully drive the company towards success and towards the mission together, each playing our own unique role. And just the way that we all communicate and collaborate sometimes needs to be tweaked or changed or improved. Yes.
Yeah,
Improved.
it's hard because a lot of UX and product designers are very, very driven by the users. And then sometimes you have other people on the team, sometimes even your product manager, sometimes not, who's very, very driven by the business outcome and the money and the numbers and the metrics. And that immediately feels like a mismatch. I've always had a better experience when my product manager said, look, I'm going to try to straddle the line between caring about the users and wanting things to go right for them and having to push some things that make the business money. And then I go, okay, I get it. That's what we have to do. I've had the worst experiences when the product manager has been like, look, middle finger to the user, the business wants us to raise this number. I don't care what research says. I don't care what marketing says. I don't care what you say. I have to raise this number. And that tells me that's a person in a lot of fear. And that's a person who's going to be judged on their performance evaluation by some ugly number somewhere. And so My question is usually to try to, give them some love and empathy and be like, okay, I get it. You're in a tough situation and you have to produce numbers and people are waiting for you to produce. Product manager, you're producing. But can we find ways to balance this with what the users need? Because to me, the way to achieve what the business wants is through what the users need, not around it, or not to keep nudging users or forcing them or tricking them. It's through. We're going to make the good business stuff happen by making good things happen for the customers. So let's try to get back to that balance.
Yep, that's awesome. That's really awesome. Wow. Okay, so now that we have all that in mind, how can we take something practical, right? For me, I'm a very, when it comes down to being practical, right? What's a tool, or we've talked a lot about this idea of trying to find someone, to confide and to talk to see, is this something they're willing, to hear me out on and help me somehow, communicate this to leadership or to someone higher up. Taking all that, what's something that you would suggest or that you would empower our listeners to do, especially now we're coming towards the end of the year and there's so many different variables, right? It's the end of the year. There's politics that play into things, and there's AI that plays into things, and there's really a lot. So if we had to just, wrap everything up that we've discussed, with a nice bow and say, okay, like, and with all this, right? What's something that we can practically take away with to feel more empowered and more excited and motivated and driven to do what we know how to do well, but to enhance it and, just make it more meaningful for everyone that we're working with.
Yeah, I hope I've given people some meaningful, actionable, and helpful ideas that they can give a try. Certainly looking for allies, speaking more of the business's language, looking at risk. Another concrete thing that I like to talk to people about is something that I call the Knowledge Quadrant. We're not going to have all the time in the world right now to cover it, but they can find it on one of my YouTube channels. If you just go to YouTube and you search for CX-CC, which is the name of one of my YouTube channels. It's customer experience, customer centricity. So it's CX-CC 196. It was episode 196 over there. And I teach what I call the Knowledge Quadrant. I've got it up on the screen for those who happen to be watching. If you're not watching, just go watch the YouTube video because I teach you all about it. And thank you for that. And how to facilitate it. Now, in my opinion, the best people to, I'll put it back up in a moment, the best people to facilitate it are UX researchers, because the outcome of this exercise is, we probably need to go research something. At many companies, that should still be a UX researcher. If for some reason you have 0 UX researchers, then everyone's going to fight over who's going to run this exercise, and I leave all of you to do that. But in my opinion, this exercise was designed to be run by researchers, and so I'll show you the short version. So the idea is I usually make a very simple Miro board with 4 quadrants on it. You can over-design it if you want. I'm not an artist, so my boards are simple. And there's 4 quadrants. It says unanswered questions and what I wish I knew, guesses, assumptions, and what I think is true, hypotheses, opinions, and what I haven't confirmed, and possibly outdated data and what used to be true. And what I do is I get all of the stakeholders together, even leadership if you have access to them. At my last job, I ran this with 57 people. Obviously, I ran it asynchronously. I put up the board, I send everybody a video of how to do it, and I said, you've got 2 days. But then you get a wonderful board full of stuff. Now, why are we doing this? Because again, you can watch the whole video and you'll get more information, but and there's no ads, well, at least I don't get the ad revenue from that video, so this is not a pitch. Please just go watch the video and do the thing. The idea is, for starters, we're going to have a visceral visual reminder of all the stuff we don't know. And I think that is sometimes a wake-up call for overconfident teams who feel like, well, I know what the users want, or we understand our users. When you start putting these stickers up, and especially sticky notes, I encourage people to ask behavior questions. Why do people do things? Will people do a certain thing? What would it take for them to do a certain thing? What do they do now? We usually have these questions and we don't know the answers to them, but they play very, very directly into our strategies, priorities, and decisions. We're strategizing, we're prioritizing, and we're deciding without knowing so much. And when we get all of that up on the Miro board, first of all, it can be a bit of a wake-up call about risk. And someone can have the conversation of, do we want to move forward with a solution or an idea when there's all this stuff we don't know? And then usually someone goes, oh. And that's where I want a researcher to swoop in with their cape and say, cool, let me plan the research project that will answer some or all of these. The cool part about that is X weeks later, when they have the answers, people go, oh, wow, that was the immediate value of research. We had these questions. Now we have these answers. We can move forward more confidently. If people want to go ahead anyway with a solution or feature that they have in mind, okay, but now it's in the context of all of these unknowns. And someone can say, okay, look, we can move forward with this idea that we think is cool, but check out all this stuff we didn't know. And let's make sure that if we run with this idea and we put it out there to experiments or A/B tests, or we launch it and it doesn't succeed, how about we revisit these unknowns? And so I think it's a great exercise all around. A lot of people from my community have tried it, have come back and said not only did it work well, but their team started loving it and started requesting that they run them more often in other product areas or where there were other unknowns. That even happened at my last job when I was still working on research study number 3. People were like, can you make a board for number 4? We already have things we want you to find out. And we just found that it was so much better than some of the usual agile stuff, which was like the retro. Okay, the retro, crap went wrong. We're not going to do anything about it. Keep going. And so I think that the Knowledge Quadrant is an easy exercise to run. It doesn't put anybody on the spot. It's not about solutions or ideas. Do not look at the board and go, I can solve the problem. I'm throwing you out of the room. So it's not about brainstorming solutions. It's not about where there are opportunities to make users happy. It's just about, what do we know? What don't we know? What do we wish we know? And the things that we think we know, is it possible that they're inaccurate or outdated? And so I find that one to be really powerful, especially if you have a good researcher on your team or who you outsource to at an agency or a freelancer who in X number of weeks can get all of that information. And all of a sudden people are going, I'm about to make a whole bunch of better decisions.
That's fantastic. That is so, I mean, so powerful in so many different ways, and it can be used, I feel like, in so many different ways. It could also, I mean, I could even see this being a weekly Friday quick team feedback session of what went on this week. It could be a quarterly, it could be an annual. I mean, there's so many ways.
I love that idea. I love the idea that you could get together every Friday and go, what do we wish we knew about our customers? Because there's stuff we don't know. At my last company, I had business analysts coming to me and saying, we're trying to write requirements. We're trying to drive the product in a certain direction. There's a lot we don't know about how people behave. And you can go even layers deeper with that when you start asking about people with disabilities. You think you know your users. Do you know your users with visual difficulties? Do you know your users who don't use a mouse because they have arthritis? Do you know your users with autism or ADHD or both? And so let's not be so, let me say, arrogant to imagine we know our users. I don't know our users until I've researched with the right number of people and asking better questions and observing them. It's better to watch people than to ask people. So I love your idea that why can't this be a recurring ceremony, just like we do a retro? What if every sprint we go, what do we wish we knew? But then, of course, we have to make sure that in our planning that we're giving our researcher, internal or external, we're giving that person time to go find out. Because if you have this board of questions and you say to your researcher, well, just go run a survey and tell me in 3 days how it went. Wrong, 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 wrong. So let the researcher do the right research to get the best answers, and that might take 2-3 weeks. It might take 1 week. It might take 4 weeks. I don't know, but let's find out what it will take, and let's plan for that. And don't worry, engineering has stuff in the backlog they can work on while we wait for research to give us some good information.
Absolutely. For sure. That's awesome. Yeah, I have a Feedback Friday workshop that I've designed that I've gotten a lot of awesome feedback on, just because, it's it's easy to run. People, I've found that teams sometimes get intimidated or afraid of, oh, a workshop, we don't have time for that. We don't do that. But something that's very small and easy to implement, it's practical and it's very powerful. So I think, especially, coming to the end of the year, I think that that's an awesome takeaway. We will definitely get the information in the description below for those of you who are watching.
Well, thanks.
And
yeah, I like to do it at the beginning of every project before the project is planned, if possible, because then you can say, aha, we need this much time to do the research. And then once we have those answers, we'll do our prioritization, we'll do designs, blah, blah, blah. So yes, you can do it late in a project, but I love to do it early. And I also like your idea of doing it on a recurring basis.
That's awesome. And I think also, just to add, for our listeners, Debbie, is it true? Would you agree that it's better? It's not an all or nothing approach. So if a manager says, we can try, right? It's better to just try, give it a try, and just take a jump and just see.
It's better to get some of those questions answered than none of them. And it's better to know what the questions are, or the unknowns or the things we're not sure about, than to not be talking about that. I'd at least like us to say it out loud and put it on the Miro board and just be like, what do we wish we knew about these people so that we can do a better job? And even if nothing happens from it, we still have something we might be talking about later if the outcomes end up not so good, because then we can, obviously in a retro or some other meeting, we might say, aha, this didn't end up very well, but check out this early board we did. We really didn't understand that very well, and we knew that going into it. You know what? Maybe next time, let's plan a little bit more time for the researcher. So maybe this time we just barrel straight through because we have confidence or arrogance, but maybe it's a good conversation to have next time to say, whoa, wait a minute, we kind of saw this coming. And so, that's not a mistake. That's a bad decision. And so, yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities to turn the Knowledge Quadrant exercise into all kinds of things. And I always tell people, look, mine is a variation of something I learned from someone named Helen Page, who I worked with a few years ago. Hers was a variation of something else. Take mine and make your own variation out of it. The only thing I suggest to people is don't turn it into a solution brainstorming workshop, because it's about the questions, the unknowns, the users, their tasks and needs and habits and behaviors and motivators and demotivators. It's about them. It's not about the solution. It's about understanding and defining the problem, not coming up with a solution.
Right. That's really awesome. And I appreciate you clarifying that, because for myself, for sure, I know it's very easy to start jumping to solutions. So
yes, you got to stop yourself sometimes, but that's okay. Put it on a sticky note off to the side, but let's make sure we understand the problems first, because sometimes the thing I think is a really interesting solution kind of doesn't make sense once I watch a couple of the interviews the researcher does, or I do the interviews and I go, oh, that's what these people's problem really is. It's not the thing we thought. Therefore, the solution is probably not the thing we thought. And then you can feed that information. Again, for people who like solution brainstorming workshops, they're not my favorite, but if you like them, why not bring this good evidence, data, and knowledge into those workshops? Why are we trying to solve stuff or brainstorm solutions when there's so much stuff we don't know? And this board would help us realize we don't know. So I think ultimately, no matter how you modify it or utilize it, I think it's a winner.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. Wow. This is amazing. This is really great. Debbie, thank you. Thank you so much for all these incredible insights and valuable resources. For our listeners and watchers that want to get a hold of you, what is the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, so I'm trying to go around algorithms, which means I'm not recommending LinkedIn because there's such a good chance you'll never be shown my post. So I like to get people more directly involved. I've got Discord communities and I've got Slack communities. I've got Patreons. They're even free. And the reason why I have multiple things, you hear me saying multiple ones, is because I have kind of one set of things that are all for my CX and UX and product strategy world, and you'll find those links, wrong side, over at dcx.to. And then the other side of my world, which is a little bit newer, my new book is Life After Tech, and it's for people who are wondering what they're going to do next or wondering about adding non-tech work to their tech career. And so all of those links are at the resources page at lat.link is my URL shortener. Otherwise, it's just lifeaftertech.info. So I've got two worlds, and I just want to see people connect with me more directly. Yeah, thank you for that. So join my Patreon for free, join my mailing list, join my Discord for free. I would tell you to follow me on LinkedIn, but you're never going to see my posts. It's killing me.
It's awesome. Algorithms. That's great. That's awesome. Okay. Wow. Debbie, thank you so much. This was incredibly valuable. Thank you everyone for listening and for watching.
Good luck.
I know that you walked away with something super valuable, concrete, actionable challenge. Let us know in the comments below what you walked away with. What are you empowered to do? Super excited to hear from you. And we will see you in the next one. Have a good day.
Thanks again.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in. I hope today's episode gave you a fresh perspective and some actionable steps towards aligning your product strategy with your business goals. Remember, you have the power to drive real change in your team and organization. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps others find the show and supports us in bringing you valuable content. And don't forget, alignment isn't just a buzzword, it's a journey that we're all on together. So until next time, keep pushing for impact and making a difference.